Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yoana Koleva, and I'm part of the business development team here at GATE Institute. And today I have the pleasure of moderating the panel discussion on the topic business-driven innovation, from data to market impact. But before we move, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, George Randelov, for a short opening segment. George, over to you.
Thank you, Yoana. I will speak in Bulgarian. Yes, so we prepared a very short, nice surprise about how innovation drives competitiveness in Bulgaria. So I have the pleasure to join with me господин Рангелов. Здравейте. Господин Рангелов е директор бизнес развитие на INSA Oil. И преди около една седмица той взе наградата за иновации в производството по време на събитието Мистер и Мисис Икономика. Наградата беше връчена за проекта им Индекс 11, завод, в който се произвежда бета-каротин по уникална българска технология, единствения в Европа и третия в света. Господин Рангелов, още веднъж поздравление за наградата. Надявам се, че ме чувате. И ви благодаря, че се съгласихте на това блиц интервю, което искаме да направим. Първият ми въпрос е дали може да ни разкажете защо се обърнахте към Университета по хранителна технология, за да работите заедно по този проект Индекс 11?
Господин Ранделов, благодаря ви за поканата. За мен е чест и удоволствие да участвам в този панел на GATE Институт. Нашата компания над 20 години се занимава с преработка на нефт и производство на горива. Ние взехме решение, че утвърдени вече в този бранш в България и на голяма част от доставчиците, търговците в Европа, решихме да развием малко нашия бизнес и да навлезем в хранително-вкусовата промишленост предвид климатичните предизвикателства, промени и проблемите, с които, за съжаление, може би предстоят относно производството на храни и хранителни продукти за хора и животни. Тъй като стъпките за развитие за вземане на решение на каквато и да била инвестиция за едно производствено предприятие, дейността, за която отговарям аз в нашата компания и не само, винаги преминава през избора на правилната технология. И тъй като взехме решение да работим в хранително-вкусовата промишленост, логичният избор беше Университета по хранителни технологии в Пловдив. Ние се бяхме насочили, имахме ясна цел какво искаме точно да правим и за това беше лесно и да изберем директно и катедрата, а именно катедра по биотехнологии, който ръководител е професор Ангел Ангелов, който е име, утвърден в този бранш. И поради тази причина, защото когато работиш, както е в петролния бизнес с утвърдени технологии, вие директно си закупувате готова технология, която вече правите проектиране, базов проект, работен проект и така нататък. Но тук започнахме наистина от лабораторията на ухите. Избрахме ги, защото в своята област те са силни. Пловдив хранително-вкусовата промишленост е доста развита. Те имат традиции в годините и намерихме общ език.
Благодаря ви. Следващия ми въпрос е... Извинявайте, прекъснах ви. Да, следващия въпрос е какви са ползите за вас и за института от това партньорство?
Ползите за нас като компания са ясни, за института може би трябва да се обърнем към тях, но при нас беше много важно, защото етапите на внедряване на нова технология, когато е разработка съвместно както компания с институт, е пилотна инсталация или полупромишлена инсталация. В България това не е много прието и заложено. Не знам за добро или за лошо, може би сме по-смели. Затова започнахме при тях в лабораторни условия. Разработихме щам, разработихме технология за производство и по този начин ние най-вече минимизираме риска. Защото вие знаете, една инсталация, когато започне работа, инвестицията са капиталните разходи, след като започне работа, оперативните разходи. В началото капиталните разходи са много стряскащи, сумите са огромни, но когато завода е на печалба, след една, две, три години, който и да попитате в компанията, трудно ще получите точно колко е струвал завода. Важни са колко разходи се харчат на година в този завод, като поддръжка, суровини, материали и така нататък. Когато започнете в университет и започнете от лаборатория, вие още в биореактора, който е 5 литра, образно казано, имате готов материален баланс, който на 90% ще ви се покрие, когато имате реактори примерно по 200, 300, 400 кубика N на брой. Така че избор е логичен. По този начин вие още в лабораторията имате достатъчно информация какво бихте получили и очаквали в завода.
Благодаря ви много.
Ако се работи умно, ако се работи сериозно, дори може да получите достатъчни количества, които да анализирате и да знаете дори състава на вашите продукти в детайли. Тоест да се насочите към вашите бъдещи клиенти още от тези първи стъпки.
Благодаря ви много, доста впечатляващо. Последният ми въпрос. Ако трябва да дадете един съвет към ваши колеги и колежки от бизнеса, които все още не са тръгнали да търсят партньорство с научно-изследователски организации, какъв би бил той?
Моят съвет е следния. Ако имате ясна идея и цел, и дори да не можете сами, защото не всяка компания има потенциал. Аз, слава Богу, имам много добри технолози, аз самия съм започнал като технолог. Задължително изберете правилния университет и катедра, защото много естествено зависи от бизнеса ви в какъв отрасъл е. След като изберете университета, България, слава Богу, има доста утвърдени университети, вижте кой е правилният за вас, като избор е много лесен, коя катедра е силна и кои са личностите там, с които ще работите. Също така, какво е оборудването в лабораториите? Защото знаете, че базите в България не са идеални, но тогава пък инвестирайте и, както ние направихме, и закупете необходимите апарати. Ето, давам ви конкретен пример. Ние в момента по същото време аз внедрявам една абсолютно нова технология в нашата петролна рафинерия, като там съм се обърнал и работя съвместно с Хети и Бургас, химико-технологичния, защото той е логичният избор. Да, и в София има, но в Бургас работят дълго време с друга наша рафинерия в България, която е наш конкурент, но просто избирате правилния университет, правилната катедра и виждате нивото на оборудване, плюс специалистите, които стоят зад тези неща, след като вие вече имате ясна цел, за която следва да работите и да се развивате. И дори да не успеете, ще загубите някакви хикс пари, които в никакъв случай няма да бъдат милиони, каквато би била инвестицията в завод, ако тръгнете да работите на сляпо.
Благодаря ви много, господин Рангелов. Само да кажа, че ние в Гейт също сме отворени към партньорство с вас, да намерим обща тема. Пожелавам ви успех в начинанията. Заповядайте при нас да видите ние в какви теми работим и се надявам до година да спечелите друга награда, пак за иновации в друга сфера. Благодаря ви още веднъж, че се присъединихте.
Ще се радвам да се видим наистина. Ние работим усилено съгласно това, което предстои да се внедри в ред 3 на Европейския съюз, така че сме отворени към всякакви предложения. В момента обсъждаме и работим основно по втора генерация биогорива, така че може да се бъдем полезни. Благодаря за поканата.
Благодаря още веднъж. Yoana, back to you.
Всичко добро.
Thank you, George, and thanks to INSA Oil for providing such a practical perspective on today's topic. And thank you as well for staying with us for the panel discussion. So please take one of the seats.
Take the one with the picture so at least you know who's who.
Not a bad idea. And let me warmly welcome the rest of our panelists. I'll start with Diana Aladzhova, who is a partner at Silverline Capital and the founder of CFO Insights. She comes with a strong track record in investing and scaling high-growth tech companies. After that, I would like to invite Nikolay Lazarov, who is a head of marketing communications and analytics at Borica. He has strong expertise in data-driven innovation across financial services and critical infrastructure. And last, but definitely not least, it's a pleasure to welcome Lyubomir Filipov, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Regulation in Veolia. He is leading innovation collaborations in large industrial and highly regulated environments. Thank you again all for joining us today. So I would like to go straight into the topic and continue building on the keynote from Stefan earlier. And I would like to ask each one of you to share an example from your experience where you have seen research being as the real driver for innovation or competitive advantage, and what was successful in that collaboration. Stefan?
I did speak enough already, so.
But you're already warmed up.
I might as well carry on. Maybe I'll just go back to an example from outside it, from a previous career at a company called Nestle. And if you actually think of what Nestle is really known for and successful, it is the nutrition that is good enough that that's all a baby or a pet eats. Now, this was one of those collaborations with all sorts of universities where the product to understand what a human baby, but even a dog or a cat needs, and if that's all they eat, needs nutrition research, it needs food science research to actually make it. It actually took a few false starts, so a few startups who then, some of them survived, but some of them didn't, to actually commercialize it correctly. And now these are the two most profitable business of Nestle. Now, you think pet food is trivial, but actually it's really high tech in a whole sorts of ways.
Good. And what worked in that collaboration?
I think really what worked was the absolute deliberate alignment of strategy. So at Nestle, we made sure that the collaboration fitted into the internal way of planning what we're going to invest money in. We did not distinguish between external and internal innovation in that sense. We said, look, the external partners are another project on our list, and they interesting compete sometimes for resources with internal ones. So it was not something that was in parallel, it was integrated in the way we work. And this integrated part was really where the conscious effort to collaborate came. You know, you really need to want it. Otherwise, it's just too easy to say, nah, I'll do my own thing. Just you go away.
Thank you. Diana?
Thank you. I would like to give another example, again in the food space. The company is called Antarta, and it's a great example of how collaboration between the scientific community and experienced entrepreneurs actually build up an innovation in the food industry, and namely space food. This is high technology food which is based on, which is rooted in cryobiology. And it preserves all the nutrients while giving the food extremely long shelf life. This is food that can be used everywhere in extreme conditions, including space, all kinds of exhibitions, sports. And the interesting part here is that it's a legacy science of Bulgaria, the space food, which was basically revived through Bulgarian entrepreneurs who invested a lot of efforts into taking this science and building it into a product which is commercially viable. And from there, it comes a long way until you actually build a business model, because first you have the science, as you already mentioned, then you need the product. The product needs to have the competitive advantage, which basically comes from the science. And as an investor, for instance, this is what I would be looking for. I need high barriers to entry. I want to see products that are difficult to replicate and that can actually penetrate different markets based on their uniqueness. So science is actually a great source of such uniqueness, and only such type of collaboration can bring innovation and technology into the food space. So now the company is actually developing very well, but it's again the result of collaboration between scientific community, entrepreneurs and investors who all invested within the same aligned strategy, willing to build some unique products from Bulgaria to penetrate global markets.
Thank you.
Hello. First of all, thanks for the invitation. In financial sector, there is a lot of examples. Because of the specific of financial sector, it's not materialized. There is the services behind, and the money is digitalized before maybe 50 years, maybe more. There is 70 years card payment history. While there is a huge amount of different use cases. In my current last rows, we use several universities as a use cases to check MVPs, minimal type of products that we can use in the real world, in the industry. Of course, being in the financial sector, is a lot of regulation behind, starting from my favorite GDPR, which is not competitive advantage for Europe when we discuss geopolitics in digital, but in the end of the day, there is a crucial to use this open innovation to check some specific products and some specific simple use cases, because there is a lot of them, to see how they will work, what will be the result behind, what the test will show, what will MVP will show without spending $1 million budget for research. In my opinion, this is the right way to use this research economy for the real world, for the real economy. Thank you.
Thank you. At the moment, Veolia is probably the biggest utility company in the world, and being active in three ecological directions, which are water, energy, and waste, we see that now the climate change is here, and we have to act. And we have to act now, and also we have to constantly develop new models which could support that ecological transformation that we as a company would like to lead. And for fulfilling this, let's say, target which we have to be very innovative. We have to think outside of the box. And apart from what we do internally as a research and innovation, as a big corporate, we're trying to see different ways for cooperation with the startup ecosystem all over the world, and also, of course, with the research institutes. And in that direction, we believe that we could, let's say, set up the best value proposition for our clients in order to reduce the CO2 impact, to reuse water, for example, or to turn the waste into resource. And a few particular examples in that direction. For example, in Spain, we are part of the SET Aqua. It's like a research institute dedicated on the water technologies, where with other corporates and also with different universities from Spain, we made that, center where we're trying to deal with different, let's say, topics related with the water. More particularly in Bulgaria, for example, we have very, I would say, strong partnership with the competence center Clean and Circle, where Sofia University participates. And the idea behind that is when we have, for example, some issues related with our day-to-day activities, we could turn to them and give them, let's say, a task in order, based on the different research and scientific methods, to help us to tackle these challenges from operation point of view. And back in the time, we had maybe 2 or 3 times such challenges in the treatment of the wastewater, for example, where this institute helped us. Now, for example, with GATE, we are discussing different opportunities for cooperation and to include ourselves in the project for the digital twins of the city, which is a very interesting project. Which could, benefit for better management of the whole infrastructure in the city through integrated approach. Of course, startups and scale-ups, another very hot topic. We have different examples in Veolia, where we are supporting the startup ecosystems in Poland, in Germany, for example. In Bulgaria, now we're partnering with Endeavor Bulgaria, where we are looking for scale-up companies which have solutions or products which are close to our activities. We are making right now, let's say, interviews with these companies to see whether their solutions or products could be adapted to our business needs. And it's very interesting because we had the chance to meet very interesting scale-up companies from Bulgaria and from the Western talents. And we are very optimistic that these companies, of course, with validation from our side, I mean technological validation and opening up the whole Veolia world for these companies, could end up in a very, very interesting partnerships. So very briefly, that was from our side. So let's discuss.
Thank you all for these great examples. We can definitely see the benefits for these collaborations. I would like to take a realistic view of that collaboration between research and industry. And because sometimes the intention, what was mentioned, the intention is strong, but things don't always click. And can you share with us a barrier or maybe a couple of barriers that you've run into or you keep running into in your experience with collaboration between research and industry? Maybe let's start with Lyubomir.
Actually, it's very interesting to see how, the process of, let's say, integration or validation of a startup company with a big corporate. And if I have to be honest, it's not very easy. Just because when you introduce the, very ambitious young people which wants the things to happen, let's say, in a few weeks, and they are speaking with our engineers are a little bit, not so open-minded. They are not very responsive to the different things. So it has to be some kind of, you have to have internal champion who to lead these processes to happen more fast into the big corporates. So this is one of the challenges that sometimes the big companies and especially the people who need to adopt and could validate or, let's say, give some recommendations for the improvement of particular technology or product, they are a little bit not very responsive. So it has to be from top to down sometimes. In the same time, we need internally to grow the entrepreneurship mindset. And that's what we are doing right now in our companies in Sofia, for example. We're trying to find in which department, no matter whether it's a commercial department or technical department or legal department, for example, people who are open-minded, who have entrepreneur mindset, in order when we have an open innovation program or startup coming from outside to have the people inside the company who could accommodate these startups or scale-ups. So this is another one challenge. I'm not going to talk about the regulations and lack of money sometimes because everything starts with the change of the mindset and afterwards everything else is happening.
If I can interject, one of the luckiest moments of my open innovation career was having an enlightened lawyer in those Nestle years. I'm serious, no, she's longer retired, but she had just the right balance of protecting the interests of the company, but understanding that we need to be able to give something to the partners. And interesting, the contracts she wrote, I keep finding the same text in other companies nowadays because it's being copied again and again throughout the industry. Because it works, it balances just right intellectual property, returns on investment, division of responsibilities. And I'm eternally grateful to this woman.
I can give you an example, especially this is very simple, but it's a check. The number of pages of your NDAs. I've been in the company, the number of pages of NDAs was 6 for something simple, and the company with the number of pages of NDAs, 1. Just imagine how it works in a different company, and this is something very easy to identify. When you see the partner with 6, 7, only for starting to discussing something to be commercialized, it's clear that will be a lot of negotiation behind. Why that? The trust, in my opinion, is here is the key words, because in the business, when you are earning for profit, market share, etc., your trust for something proven decision, because you need to deliver result now, next year, your board limits, etc. In the university, it's different. It's long. Sometimes the product development process, it's not 1 year, 2 years period. But sometimes it's not so easy to click the interest between the industry and between the university, because in the current moment the speed in industry is tremendous. And this speech should be delivered with some benefits in the real world from the universities. Whereas, in my opinion, there is a trust in speed in that direction. That never forget, if you see 6 pages NDA, it will be a tough relationship. I can say that.
I can give an example from collaborations between startups and the scientific community, and basically why it often doesn't really work out. What I observed over the past years was the following. We have the researchers who are focused very much on the product, and we have the entrepreneurs who are focused very much on the market. And when these two do not align, and it's very difficult to align, there is a clash, because the researchers, they want to build something unique, which is also sometimes very, very complex, and also sometimes very, very expensive. So they don't think about resources, they don't think about market functionality or commercialization. They want to build an invention, they want to build something that they would be proud of. And now the entrepreneurs come, and they don't think in years, they don't think about the product uniqueness, they think about what is the market, what are the commercialization terms, what are potential clients, what these clients actually want as functions for these products. And when they came back to the researchers, and they come basically with a lot of limitations. in terms of resources that are available from investors, in terms of time frame that they have to build something specific, and in terms, of course, of the final and end product, which is very often different from what the researcher had in mind in the first place. And when we see that, especially in early stage startups, it can go both ways. Either the collaboration doesn't happen because they just cannot align. And it's very difficult for a researcher who had never had an experience with the market, for instance, because they had never brought a product to the market in terms of business modeling. And for the entrepreneur. And there are all types of conflicts here. So one of the barriers, I would say, is a lack of translators. And the more translators there are, I think all of the people here basically have such a role, including the GATE Institute, because you need people to translate to both parties how they could align the interests between them and why is it important to align it, because otherwise, in terms of incentives, they would always go in the opposite ways.
Maybe just another very small comment. I couldn't agree more, but I find the startups are the translators. If you have faculties talking to companies directly, this is where the timelines, the IP rights, the different culture, they're difficult. Now, this is why, of course, we have our KICs, communities of trust, but actually, usually, it's easier for a researcher to found a company themselves out of their PhD and then start talking, once they're confronted with business, to a large company, than do it directly. That's why we do need startups there. You cannot take them out of that mechanism.
Very interesting insights, thank you. So it sounds like that translation and alignment and change and alignment in the mindset as well is quite crucial in that collaboration. Probably you would agree also that the fuel in that relationship is also the data, because today data sits at the heart of a lot of the innovation that's taking place, and it can definitely accelerate the progress, but it can really slow things down. So in your perspective, from your experience, when have you seen data, when do you think data can be an enabler rather than a barrier for the collaboration between research and business and driving the innovation?
Maybe I can start here. So I think we all agree that data is a must in order to do any good research or any good business. You always need data to analyze so that you have some fundamental to step on. The point is we often have the barrier that data is unanimously defined. You have this confidential information which basically can cover everything. And often this basically acts as a troublemaker to any innovation and progress. So what I have seen that works well and what we apply, for instance, is risk-tiered data enabling, which basically means that you divide the data into types of sources depending on the risk of this data. And for instance, industrial data is low risk. You can freely distribute industrial data. While, for instance, personal data is the highest risk. You never distribute personal data. And once you have these stacks of data, you can transfer a lot of it directly to uses that are needed in the specific company or in the specific business or research, just depending on the definition of this data. So what we see that works is never having the whole definition of confidentiality applied, but rather think about what they actually need and how you can provide it without, of course, the violating any legal or other norms.
Makes sense. Stefan, you seem to disagree.
No, well, I only disagree on the industrial data because this is highly valuable, and trust me, no one will give you the process parameters just because they like you. But I think the point about data in collaboration is data is not just there. We have the analogy that data is the new oil, and just like oil doesn't actually lie out there, you actually need to find it, extract it, process it, and so on. data actually needs to be gathered systematically, which is not. It needs to be understood, it needs to be structured, processed, and applied. Now, if you look at medical data, I mean, this is ridiculous. I get a blood analysis every 6 months, if lucky. No one knows what's in between. You know, and somebody's trying to work with that data. If you look at process data, I mean, this is coming out of machines not designed to surrender that data. It's just inside the process control units, and that's it. If you look at cities data, you know, the lecture from this morning, no one actually knows where the bus is. You know, you assume based on a timetable where it should be, but it's not very useful if you're waiting for it. So the data itself may well be the product, and therefore the collaboration emerges from the fact that if you're good at gathering data, somebody needs to buy it off you to pay for it.
I will add that there is a different layer in this topic. When we discuss for scientific data, we can use some synthetic data or anonymous data in order to prove our MVPs, etc., etc. The real issue starts with the real life data and how is processed, protect, and how this processing data will impact organization, institutions, individuals, etc., etc. Why that when we're discussing the data, we are touching a very sensitive topic, and with the new power of AI and how we can fastly, how to say, I can give you an example for the real world. Before 1.5, even 2 years, we are modeling data for 2 months. This was the period to gathering, etc., modeling, and start using for commercial reason after 2 months. It was almost unuseful. Currently, with the current capabilities, we can modeling data in the real time, which is completely game changer when we're discussing the customer needs, behavior, etc., etc., individuals and company. Why that the issue with the data will be arise from now on, because from now on the number of data will increasing rapidly. We are not even in the period of Internet of Things when the data will be created between the connected devices. Actually, the people wouldn't be part of this story, but in the end of the day, this will affect them. Why that? The story with the data is very specific, and the universities can use the data as a synthetic data, something which is created especially randomly for proof something, which is the easiest part. The issue starts with the real life data. And this again,
about the data, we all know that if you want to manage something well, first of all, we have to measure it. And measuring this, that means that we have to have reliable data. And the things with the data are, first, whether we have reliable data, and the data it's okay in terms of quality. And secondly, it's whether the data is structured in a proper way. And even believe in all this, I mean, even the AI models, in order to train these models, we have to have the correct data structured in a correct way. So it's very important who is validating the data and how we are sure that actually what the data we use for the training of the models is the correct one, in order to have the correct results in the end of the day. Because I mean, garbage in, garbage out. And I'll give one particular example on this. Now in Sofia, for example, we're trying, based on our artificial intelligence and machine learning models, to make a model for the consumption of the water, to forecast the consumption of the water in Sofia. And we started to do that, and we found out actually that the data we use, because we were feeding the model with 2 types of data. The first type was the data from the, build volumes, the volumes of data you see in your bills for water. And the second set of data was the data which we are measuring the different zones in Sofia through log years. And based on these 2 sets of data, we want to predict how much water will be used in the city for the next, let's say, year or for example, months. And we saw some not very, some anomalies into the prediction. And we found out, for example, that the data from one of the sets for the water which is put into the city, let's put it in that way, coming from loggers, it's not correct because some of these loggers, they are not measuring correctly. And then when you put that, let's say, not correct data into the model is not predicting correct results. So yes, we are trying to move from opinion-based decisions towards data-driven decisions, but we have to check all the time the quality of the data.
Thank you. As I want to give the floor to the audience, I would like to also ask you about the whole scaling process and for that collaboration between research and industry. What collaboration formats have you seen work for that collaboration and for taking the innovation from the labs to the market? And what was successful in the scaling?
I think I can only go back to what I said before. It's absolutely essential that whatever you're doing as a company is at the core of your strategy. Don't collaborate as a footnote, as a side project, as a hobby. You need to collaborate on the things your board sees, on the things your CEO sees, on the things your highest profile forum decides on. You have the same milestones, the same stage gates, the same portfolio reviews. And then it works because the pull effect is there. Then somebody says, so where do you stand? It's been 6 months, €1 million. Where do you stand? If you do it on the side, there is no scaling ever. Because then when you get to the factory where you get to, presumably the sewage plant, somebody says, nah, you know what, not this year. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. It really needs to be at the core of your processes. And then everything else you can adjust.
Yeah, I actually agree a lot with what you just said, and what I have observed as working very well is corporate research partnerships, where the corporate not only provides financial resources, which is also often the footnote, basically just to have it in your budget, just to have it in your marketing campaign that you're supporting research, but also the corporate becomes the first customer, because then they come with particular deliverable they want, which is also marketable, and this leads the research into a space where it becomes a product. So this is the first thing I think works very well, and the second is joint ventures between universities and startups, which usually are defined as equity stakes for both parties, because this also aligns interests. If you just take the research without giving them any equity stake, they don't really have the incentive to bring this product to the market, because what do they win? But if you actually put both parties in a commercial partnership where they both know what they want to achieve, it's easier to get some progress there. Now, a legal barrier in Bulgaria is that actually universities face huge difficulties here to form a commercial partnership, and they cannot participate in enterprises with commercial activities, which blocks a lot of these efforts that I'm now talking about. So we also need the legal and public support here.
A really tough question, because there is not black and white, and it should be very adjustable and tailor-made decision for different companies, because the culture management, etc., is different. The same is valid for the universities, but in the end of the day, based on my knowledge and experience, what is work is so-called open innovation hubs in the companies, which are put into the direct competition for the internal, for example, development teams. It doesn't matter with this open innovation. If these open innovation teams find faster, cheaper, better decision compared to internal development team, this is the right way to do it. Now, from the other part, this is the issue for the university, because they should be enough visible, enough, how to say, adjustable to the rhythm and the knowledge and the experience and the expectation of the companies, because sometimes you need to react. I can give you from my experience in 1 week, 2 weeks, because you have a board decision committee, investment committee, board committee, and this is a rhythm. For example, 1 per month, 1 per quarter, etc., etc. You should give a decision, yes or no, for this short period, and there will be not a lot of time to discussion, etc., etc. Why that in the universities researchers should have a clear structured products in order to fit and click in the company strategy, and this I can share based of my knowledge.
Yes, definitely you have to have a strategy, and for me it's very important to know actually whether you're gonna be able to put on the market the particular, let's say, innovation or research or whatever you find out. And in our practice, we had very often meetings with, let's say, some kind of a scientific people who are coming to us and saying, hey, we have a great idea, this is, breakthrough, innovation, this is something, very from scientific point of view, very, very interesting. But when you ask these people, okay, good, but how we're gonna sell that, to whom we're gonna sell that, and how we're gonna make money out of that, then they said, okay, we don't know, but we made a big finding. So we have to know actually what is marketable and what is bankable in terms of innovations. Of course, this is I'm talking from the perspective of a corporation, not in general. And for example, in Veolia, we said that we are going to ring fence 1% of our annual turnover that is going to be invested in innovations. And right now we are setting up let's say, the particular mechanism through which that will happen. Because very often there is a very big, a long way between the scientific development till the market realization. And what we did, like maybe 1 year ago, it was very interesting. Actually, I was in Brussels 2 weeks ago, where we made meetings of the business development teams and innovation teams. Because we want to shorten that path. We want to be able to be client-oriented, to be very fast in suggesting different products or solutions to our clients, and we want to work with the innovation teams in order that process to be more faster and to be more efficient in terms of market realization and, of course, in provision of a better service or product.
Thank you all for providing the examples. Just conscious of time, I would open the floor for the audience to ask questions, so please raise your hands.
Hi, thank you very much for the very informative, sorry, did I cut across someone? The very informative panel, thank you. I'm asking from a research perspective. I'll take advantage of the expertise on the stage. If you were talking to a CEO who had never worked with a scientific research organization, what would your elevator pitch be for why they should start?
First of all, you should probably ask yourself if you're talking to the right person. I'm deeply suspicious of businesses who don't take interest in innovation. I don't think they'll survive. But if for any reason it is the right person, make sure you do your research and understand what's their pain point. They would have usually said it in the last press conference, investment conference, and just attack straight that. If they're talking of all the efficiencies they need to take, I'll say, you know what, I'll have just a solution for your efficiency. If they're talking of how they need growth, say, you know what, 1 million people will buy your product just because you work with me. Just like with every pitch, find a pain point and make sure they hear what they actually are worried about while they're actually not listening.
I can give you again one practical things. Usually in the big corporates, there's 2 types of people. One are create trouble for the CEOs, and the other are take care about these troubles. And why that the pain points here? You should know what is the pain points. It's not so tough to understand. Listen them. When they say something 3 times in one speech, this for them pain points. I will go back more than 10 years. In 2009, I have one speech, Let's Do It was presentation. And our CEO, for the group CEO, 76 times said cost reduction. It was clear which is the pain point. Why that I can give you this example.
Very quickly from my side, I fully agree that you shouldn't talk to the CEO. You should talk to the innovation officer or innovation manager, because that's the person who could, I mean, if you sell your idea to that guy, then that guy is going to go and sell this to the CEO. Of course, the CEOs, they are interested in this. They're looking at the financial numbers. I mean, that innovation, of course, it's going to, solve some, big issue of the environment or of the society. And okay, that's good. But in parallel to that, the CEO is looking to the results. Is that going to reduce the costs? Is that going to increase the revenues? Is that going to make us more efficient? And that's why if you want to sell your idea to the big corporate, just try to find the people who are the innovation managers in that company. For me, from my perspective, this is the best way to do it.
And briefly from me, offer them a low-risk option on how to test your product. Something that could happen fast and that could deliver some results. Because this is after you have your foot at the door, it would be easier to actually enter, rather than giving them a very huge opportunity, huge product, and something they need would require a lot of time and resource.
Thank you. I think the gentleman on the second row had a question.
Yes, I have a question to Stefan about your first picture about resilience. And I wonder, how come you have the Nord Stream pipe there, but not the Langeled pipe? The Nord Stream is delivering 0, and the Langeled pipe is delivering 11% of the UK primary energy.
I think just to make you ask yourself the question, thank you for noticing. Because indeed, it is exactly this kind of illustration that shows how bad it can get. Yes, no, it's deliberately a picture before the war, because it just shows how little attention we're paying to resilience. And it's one of those, if you don't pay attention to it for long enough, the problem becomes bigger.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I have a question. Earlier today, a point was made about IKEA making use of knowledge bases, ontologies, and so on, which was considered let's call it a big leap for them. Now, IKEA is a big European player, one of the biggest maybe. However, these technologies was adopted in the United States 10 years ago. 2015, Walmart was one of the maybe first corporations that was adopting this technology that put it in use. Do you think, from your experience, European companies are slow to adapt to these new technologies, slow to adapt to these new innovations, and could that maybe help create that bridge that you were mentioning, the falling behind from the United States and China? And also on the contrary, could some of these smaller companies jump head first into these innovations? Let's say everybody nowadays is looking for NLP, and maybe they don't need them, maybe they don't need the NLP, maybe they don't need the AI for their custom cases. Could that be a negative impact on their future, on their profit, on their market value, and so on?
I'll try. Look, I think there is a problem with companies wanting or not wanting to innovate. The coach is at the point of a CEO. There are too many companies in Europe that just don't want to innovate. They blame it on regulation, they blame it on all sorts of things. The reality is many of them are just too comfortable, high market shares, long history of success. It's called complacency in English. So that, I think, will need to change, and that will need to change in the competitive pressure. It needs to change by opening up. The good news from my point of view is it's not uniformly distributed either. The problem is in the old established industrial member states of the Union.
The problem is much bigger in Germany than here. If you actually look at the numbers, it's the periphery of the continent, starting from Cyprus, Greece, Bulgaria, Malta, Portugal, kind of all the way to the Baltics, where the truly dynamic companies are. So I have very high hopes for this continent because we are a mixed bag and there is always an island that's doing well and is taking up the kind of innovative spirit you're talking about. While the rest of them, yes, are very much asleep, but thank you very much. They can just cover up and stay there.
Also, I think it contributes that Europe is a quite fragmented market. Like if you compare it to China and the US, here we have a huge number of smaller companies aiming very often to solve similar problems with less capital. And the combination of this often leads to, we call it the large valley of debt, which is basically where all the researchers collapse between TRL 4 and 7, like before actually having a product ready to go to the market. So I think it works very well when European institutions help with this regard. And for instance, now the EIC is building programs for consortiums. So they are trying to stimulate more of these smaller companies because we are invested in one EIC company. It's working on AI, extremely deep tech. They need a lot of resources, they need a lot of markets and a lot of capital. So now what we are discussing internally, if they actually build this type of consortiums and combine with 3-4 more companies collaborating, they can create something much bigger, which is also applicable to a bigger market, not only to the specific fragmented ones.
One last question. But, yeah.
Thank you very much for your perspective. Very informative panel discussion. I would also like to offer a perspective and a question. Because you talked about NDAs at length and what should happen, what should not happen, and I think Mr. Filipov also mentioned the golden rule of garbage in, garbage out. My perspective is the following. We have several times, and I'm coming from other jurisdictions as well, signed NDAs with companies to share data, to co-innovate, and when the moment comes, they say, oh no, we cannot give you that real data, we need to normalize, anonymize, and so on and so forth. But then how does the company expect that we deliver real value if we work on anonymized, normalized synthetic data that does not exhibit the problem that we're trying to solve? So my question with this perspective is, because I think we're talking about trust, what would be the thing that makes you cringe if I, as a researcher, come to you to talk about gaining your trust? What should we not do to, if we want your trust?
Maybe I can start. It's very specific. It depends on the product behind. If it's a core cash cow products, you can explain me what you want, but the story is that this is my core, etc. If you go and support me with something new, something with the beginning of the adoption curve, it will help me to promote this better, to have better results in the end of the day as financial. Why that? This is one thing. Why that the trust with when you starting something new is different than your core. If you have 70% of your revenue comes from one product, you will be very, very, very conservative in terms to change it, to adopt it. Because this is the actual European problems. There is a lot of cash cow working hundreds of years very well, give a huge amount of profit. How to change it if they deliver it 80% of your revenue? Everyone will start to think slightly differently. Why that help me with something new, something which is, I need help, and I will support you. I will give you the exact way how I'll explain this to researchers and startups with this question. I can say
maybe that. Just an almost philosophical view. I'm signing an NDA because I trust you. It's not that I trust you because I signed an NDA. NDAs, by the way, have highly questionable legal value. I will let the lawyers comment on this one, but by and large, they're unenforceable. You need to create trust by common interest. And I think this is exactly this point. You need to be offering something that is commercially relevant. You know, back to the question of CEO, where do you fit in my business model? Because if you fit in my business model, I want you around. And you don't, I don't think I'll cringe. My first reaction as an executive is always, I do trust you. Business, humans do trust. It's only when you do something bad that I will stop trusting you, and then you're in real trouble.
Fully agree about the form of NDA, and I'll come back to what I said in the beginning. It's very important to have the right internal team who is going to deal with that. For example, one of the departments I'm responsible for is the legal department. And in the past, the legal department all the time was saying no, 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 no. And it took some time to, you know, educate them that, okay, when you say no, or that cannot happen, okay, explain me how we can do it. I mean, which are the steps? Okay, if it's not possible now, tell me what I have to do in order that to be able to be done. It's also with the IT guys. I don't want to insult somebody, but you know, IT guys again. We have, you know, certain protocols of Veolia. We cannot connect this device to our SCADA system. Of course, the SCADA system is, you know, commanding our different valves and reservoirs and stuff like that. But probably there is some kind of a technical decision to find out, you know, maybe we can find some kind of other protocols and do the things. And if these people are not internally, let's say, convinced into the added value of the things we are going to do, I mean, it's very hard. Even if the CEO pick up the phone and tell them, let's do it, just do it, they can find a million of ways to kill the project. You have to have the proper internal, let's say, environment which could accommodate such kind of projects. I don't know whether I have answered to your question, but this is, again, a mindset in a way.
Thank you. That was very interesting discussion. I have a lot more questions, I'm sure the audience as well, but I'm afraid we ran out of time 20 minutes ago. So thank you for sharing your reflections and thoughts on the topic about the collaboration between research and industry and the importance for it for all of us. And I hope that discussions like this will continue to shed more light on why it matters and how we can make it stronger in the future. So thank you very much, and big round of applause for our panelists.